you want. Yeah.
That's my equipment really quickly. Mr. East, I see you there. Can you hear me, sir? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you. I had to
Okay.
unmute myself here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roger Jimenez, how are you, sir?
Selmasburg.
Give it just a couple of more minutes. I'm having some technical difficulties on my end, but as long as you all can hear me, it should be okay. I'll see if I can get a camera working on my phone here momentarily. Let me try this. I don't know if my, okay.
So this is going to be a little weird,
Um,
but I'm going to join from my phone just so that I'm visible for folks.
And then I'll try to run tonight's meeting from our computer. And thank you, Mrs. Brown. I appreciate it.
Got it. Does that sound better? Can you all still hear me? Okay.
That works.
Okay, perfect. Gotta love technology. I should know how all of this works by now, but every outing is new. And Mr. Longo, great to see you, sir.
Good to see you too, man. It's been a minute.
It's been a while, I was gonna say. My hair's falling out. That's all that's changed. Okay. All right. Just to be mindful of time, because I know we have a lot to get through on the agenda tonight, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we can get started. Actually, while I'm doing that, let me introduce myself and staff. My name is Michael Burton. I'm with the Fairfax County Department of Planning and Development. For those who are joining the call, I apologize. I'm having some technical difficulties, so I'm not looking directly at the camera on my phone. I'll be looking at the presentation. But we're here tonight to talk about the 2025 cycle of the site-specific plan amendment process. I'm joined this evening by a couple of colleagues, Clara Johnson and Samantha Archibald. They'll be supporting me this evening, monitoring chat, etc. And we're really, really appreciative of your time. If you're new to this process and you're just hearing about some of these ideas, you're right at the beginning. We're at the ground floor. This is the very first conversation that we're having with the public. We just received many of these nominations about a month ago, so everything is fresh. We're just at the beginning and we're just getting started. So I do want to, for a few minutes, turn the floor over to the Mason District Supervisor, Supervisor Jimenez, for some opening remarks.
Well, Mr. Burton, thank you so much. Great to see you. Glad you got your camera on, and thanks with the help of Mr. Longo, we can hear you, so that's great. Looking at the participants, it's great to see so many Mason residents and some other residents jumping on for this second night of the SSPA. So let me kick it off by saying good evening to everyone, and thank you all for joining us tonight. I want to welcome each of you and express my appreciation for your interest and engagement in this process. I want to emphasize, as it will be, it'll just like it's already been done, it'll be done again. Tonight is just the very beginning of the site-specific amendment plan, the SSPA process. No decisions will be made this evening. The purpose of this meeting is to hear from you, the public, first and foremost. Your questions, feedback, and concerns are essential. You'll also have the opportunity to hear directly from the nominators about their proposals. Public engagement is a critical part of this process. There will be many additional opportunities for community input and formal review as we move forward. Your voices will continue to play a vital role in shaping any decision made by staff or the Board of Supervisors down the line. And with that said, I am going to turn it back to you, Mr. Burton. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Supervisor Jimenez. All great points. I'll probably reiterate most of those points here as we dive into the presentation. So let me share the screen. And can you all see that? Can you see that, Supervisor? Okay, perfect. All right. Let's see if I can get everything organized here. Okay, so as has been mentioned, the purpose of the meeting tonight will be to review and discuss 3 of the site-specific plan amendment nominations that have been submitted in the Mason District. There will be one additional meeting. We actually had our first meeting on last evening for the South Mason items along Etchell Road mainly, and in the southern part of the district. Tonight, we'll be focusing on the Leesburg Pike items. There are 3 nominations that we received between Seven Corners and Bailey's Crossroads. And then we have a final meeting on April 21st, and that will focus on the items along Little River Turnpike, and I believe there are 4 of them. A schedule of the nominations can be found on the SSPA webpage, as well as one-page summaries for each of the nominations. I think what I'll do before the meeting is over, just to not tarry time, I'll make sure that I drop that link into the chat for reference so folks can find that information pretty quickly. All right, here's a quick look at tonight's agenda. As I mentioned before, I'm sorry, this is the wrong one. Uh-oh. That's okay. I can talk about the 4 that we have. So I think we have 6211 Leesburg Pike, and that is for the Sear site in Seven Corners, followed by, we'll start with the Jefferson item first. This is at 6166 Leesburg Pike, followed by the Sear site in Seven Corners. And then we'll close this evening by discussing MA 23, which is at 5521 Leesburg Pike, and that's for the Food Star in the Bailey's Crossroads area. Okay, all right. So the countywide SSPA process provides an opportunity for property owners and members of the public to propose various land use changes to the comprehensive plan. We call them nominations. You'll hear us use that term often, but all of them are essentially plans to amend the comprehensive plan for a single site or a collection of parcels within the county. The goal of the SSPA process is to provide the opportunity for communities to participate and inform the long-term vision of the county. Once the nominations have been accepted by the board, which they were in February, we entered what's called the screening phase, which is where we are now. The amendments we're discussing tonight is the first step. These community meetings are the first step in that discussion. What we're hoping to do tonight, as Supervisor Jimenez has mentioned, is to gather your input on all of the nominations. All of the feedback that we received will be compiled and shared with both the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. And the board will ultimately make a decision on which of these nominations would be added to staff's work program. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a moment. Really quickly, just to provide some context, if you're sort of new to the process, this diagram gives us a sense of where we are and sort of the overall development process. It illustrates the life cycle of the land development process in the county, beginning with the conceptual phase. So the nominations that we'll be discussing tonight are very much in their infancy and have not been substantively reviewed. Staff's formal evaluation will occur only after the nomination is added to the comprehensive plan work program. At that point, the nomination moves into a study, what we call a plan amendment study, and that moves into the second phase, which is the planning and zoning review. At this stage, we expect to conduct both an opportunity and impact analysis on each of the proposals before offering a formal recommendation to the Planning Commission and the board. And subsequent to plan amendment process, applicants, if they are successful, would then and only then be able to submit a rezoning application to initiate a zoning or an entitlement process. So really quickly, the comprehensive plan is a multi-layered document. It's a policy document used by both county staff as well as our elected and appointed officials to guide land use decisions across the communities. The plan provides recommendations on how land could be used in the future, where future growth could be accommodated, and guidance for environmental and cultural resource protection. A very important component of the comprehensive plan is what we call the concept for future development map, shown here. This map provides a general framework for how we think about different areas of the county and how they might develop in the future. The categories or land use classifications shown on the map represent a different set of recommendations for how these areas should grow and develop over time. the concentration of growth in the county is largely oriented towards what we call our transit station areas or our mixed use centers. And you can see I've highlighted a few here. The circle that you see is a rough border or area of the Mason District. Within the Mason District, we have 5 activity centers. That includes 4 community business centers, 7 corners, Bailey's Crossroads, Lincolnia, as well as Annandale. And we have 1 industrial area, which is Beltway South. That's generally located between I-495 to the south and Etzel Road. Some of the terms that you're going to hear us mention quite often this evening are density, intensity, and FAR. Well, what do they mean? All of these are terms that we use internally to talk about the amount of development. So when we talk about how much development we expect to see, these are the terms that we use to describe them. For residential uses, we focus on the density of residential units within a defined geography, and it's typically 1 acre. So we use the terms dwelling units per acre. If you've had an opportunity to go through the one-pagers, you've probably seen that term, and that can reflect a range of residential densities. Your single-family home communities generally range up to about 4 dwelling units per acre. You have your larger townhome communities. They typically range between 12 and 16 dwelling units per acre. And then you can have higher intensity uses such as multifamily, which can be upwards of 20 units per acre. For commercial uses, we use a different term. We use a term called intensity. And we measure the intensity of a commercial use or a non-residential use by measuring the structure, the size of the structure, or the floor plate of the structure, and dividing that by the square footage or the floor plate of the entire site or the parcel that is being developed. So a really quick formula: if you take the square footage of the building, divide that by the square footage of the land area that's being developed, that gives you an equation that we call floor to area ratio, or FAR for short. Another way that we will often describe commercial or non-residential intensities is simply by noting the square footage amount. So this is a quick map that highlights all of the nominations that were submitted as a part of the 2025 SSPA cycle. We received a total of 53 applications, and the board opted to forward 43 of those nominations into the screening process. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we're at the very beginning. The nomination period actually opened on January the 13th, closed on February the 13th. And that's when we received all of the 53 initial applications. The board voted on March 4th to pass and screen a certain number of nominations into the screening phase, which is where we are now, here in the green. So tonight is one of the community meetings that we're holding to get your feedback. And these meetings will last again. I think Mason District is last. Our last meeting will be on April 21st. Following the screening phase or the community meetings, we will have a planning commission workshop and markup. The planning commission workshop is open to the public, and folks are able to provide comment and feedback to the planning commission at that point as well. After the planning commission has had a chance to go through all of the nominations and hear the feedback from community members, they will have a markup session and subsequently make a recommendation to the board for action on June 10th. Stay tuned for the Mason District Planning Commission markup dates. I believe they are towards the end of May. Again, Mason is the last district to go. And so I think our scheduled time is around May 22nd. Don't quote me on that. The information will be provided on the website. So what happens if a nomination passes the screening process? As I've mentioned before, it will be added to the county's 2025 Plan Amendment Work Program. We do have a tiering system within our work program that identifies nominations or amendments that have the highest priority to the board, or nominations that best meet broader county goals. So when the board reviews the work program on June the 10th, they will make a determination as to which of these nominations have the highest priority. and then they will be added to a tiered system within the work program. Each of the nominations will be studied or evaluated as staff resources are available. So the timing may not be immediately after the screening process. It may be some months or possibly even a year before we're able to commit resources to studying these. At that point, at the point in time where we are prepared to study it, we will reach out to members of the community and let you all know what the study schedule looks like so that you all are able to participate. And if a nomination does not pass screening, as you might imagine, it does not make it onto our work program. However, I do want to stress that it does not mean that a property could not continue to redevelop under its current plan guidance. So there's guidance for each of the sites that we'll talk about tonight that they could avail themselves of, even if the nomination that we'll discuss is not successful. It is also possible for nominations to be resubmitted in future cycles of SSPA. This process occurs about once every 2 years. And so it's possible that a nomination, it's possible that you're seeing nominations that you've seen in previous cycles. That's to be expected. We do ask that nominators provide some statement of justification if they're being resubmitted again. Really quickly, this is just a breakdown of the nominations across various districts in case you're interested. Ultimately, Mason District has 11 nominations that are being screened. And these are the meeting dates and the general locations of each of the items. And again, tonight is meeting 2, and we're looking at the items along Leesburg Pike. The meeting on yesterday evening was recorded. That will be uploaded to the webpage so that if you're curious about the items in the southern part of the district, you'll be able to see that and offer feedback as well. So tonight, just the order of operation, we're going to provide just a brief overview, staff will, of each of the nominations, give you all a sense of their location and some of our preliminary considerations. We've invited the nominators to join us this evening to present their justification for each of the projects. And both staff and the nominators will be available to answer any questions that you all may have. The discussion of public Q&A is open. I will ask just to be mindful of time. I know we have a lot of speakers, and we want to make sure that everyone who wants the opportunity to speak has the opportunity to speak. I won't cut you off, but I will just strongly encourage you to pay attention to your time and know that your neighbors are also waiting to speak as well. I also want to stress this is not the last time that you will have an opportunity to provide comment. If you would like to provide a written documentation, feel free to forward me information. I'll share my email in the chat as well once we get started. And then, of course, the subsequent community workshops, there'll be additional points where your input can be taken. All right. I know I'm running through time here pretty quickly. We'll go ahead and get started. And then if anyone has questions, we'll allow that at the first Q&A point. All right. So our first nomination this evening is MA009, located at 6166 Leesburg Pike, more informally known or formally known as the Jefferson Apartments. This was submitted by Scott Adams of McGuire Woods. The site is currently 13 acres or approximately 13 acres and is currently planned for residential use up to 20 dwelling units per acre. It's similar in density to some of these adjacent residential communities, both to the north and northeast. There are multifamily units just to the north here as you move towards Patrick Henry Drive. And I'm sorry, the north is the left or the right side of your screen. But then to the south, around Brook Drive and Olin Drive, the density tapers down to your single family residential neighborhoods at 3 to 4 dwelling units per acre. There is an institutional use directly across the street, First Christian Church, as well as a funeral home. We also asked each of the nominations to provide a concept. These are just concepts. These are high level. This may not reflect what a final design may look like, but it does help to give us a sense of what the nominations are thinking about. So really quickly for the Jefferson, they are looking to add additional residential units, primarily in the surface parking lot areas. along Leesburg Pike, as well as the southern portion of the site. They're also looking to introduce structured parking in the northern part of the site for the existing multifamily residents. And in the concept, they've identified and highlighted a number of park spaces that could be included with any redevelopment option. In total, I don't think I gave you the proposal, and I apologize about that. I think I was jumping through. The nomination proposes to increase the residential density on the site up to, or in addition, or adding an additional 101 residential units. This would include single-family attached, what we would call townhomes, 2/2 townhomes, and or a combination of triplexes. Right, and with that, I am happy to introduce our first nominator this evening, Mr. Scott Adams. Scott, the floor is yours, sir.
Sure. Thank you, Mike, and appreciate the opportunity. I'm Scott Adams. I'm a land use attorney with McGuire Woods, and I represent the owner of the Jefferson, who's also the nominator of this project. And again, really appreciate the opportunity to talk tonight about this nomination, where we're really seeking to create a more modern vision for the Jefferson and make some site changes that we think will better align what's on the site with a lot of county goals. And so a part of that vision, which you heard from Mike, is both maintaining the existing building that's out there, but also creating new for sale housing opportunities in a variety of forms to create new for sale housing options in this area. But at the same time, doing things like reducing the amount of surface parking on the site, creating new publicly accessible park space and trails, and significantly improving the frontage on Route 7. And so, additionally, I think looking at a vision that'll create a better connection with Seven Corners, but while still ensuring that we're being respectful of the surrounding residential communities to the south and the east of the property. And so tonight, just wanted to talk about that vision, including talking through a couple of the concepts that we came up with for the site. But as you heard from the supervisor and from Mike, we're very early in the process. And so we really do view this as the beginning of a conversation about the site rather than the end, and look forward to engaging with the community on changes that we're proposing. So if we go to the next slide, just to give you a little bit of context, the site is located right on Route 7. It's located directly adjacent to the Seven Corners Community Business Center, which is sort of the commercial hub for Seven Corners. The property is less than 1,000 feet from the Seven Corners Shopping Center. It's about a half-mile walk up to Williston. As you saw on the sort of the context map, you've got apartments to the north, and then we've got single-family homes to the west and to the east and the south of the property. Right now, there's no vehicular connections to those neighborhoods. There's some pedestrian connections, and I think, we would look to maintain the fact that there would be no vehicular connections, but trying to enhance some of the pedestrian connections between our site and what's around us. If you go to the next slide. So the existing building was constructed in 1962. It's 5 stories and it's got 310 apartments. There's some amenities located throughout the site, including a pool towards the back of the site. And also in the back of the site, you've got some floodplain and resource protection area. And those are areas that we intend to stay out of and make sure that we're not impacting any of the environmentally sensitive portions of the site. Along Route 7, you've got surface parking that wraps around to the northern side of the property and almost takes up the entirety of that northern side. And then you've also got along the frontage on Route 7 a service lane that is within the public right-of-way, but it's disconnected from the properties to the north and the south, and really is frankly used for long-term parking along Route 7. And I think our view is that frontage of the property is really not ideal or particularly comfortable or welcoming for pedestrians or for folks who are coming into Seven Corners. And so really looking at trying to make those improvements to make sure we're creating a better circumstance. So if we could go to the next slide. So I think in looking at the current site layout, looking at what's around us and county policies on things like housing, pedestrian enhancements, parks, and others, we really felt like there were opportunities to improve this site for both the existing residents, but also make this into more of a connected piece of the broader community that, again, aligns better with county goals. And so, in thinking through the design and that vision, we were really focused on the Route 7 frontage and creating a more appealing front door, both for this site and for Seven Corners. And so a big part of that is removing the surface parking that's along that frontage, working with VDOT to try and convert that disconnected service lane into something that is more appealing and welcoming. And so we've looked at moving the current parking that's surface parking for those apartments to one-story parking garage that would be on the north side of the building where you've already got existing surface parking. And then placing housing, landscaping, multi-use trail in the front along Route 7 to really create that welcoming entrance to the site, that more appealing frontage leading into Seven Corners. Adding pedestrian facilities to create a more comfortable pedestrian experience, including converting that service lane. Additionally, looking at adding parks, and those would be publicly accessible parks throughout the site. The concepts we're going to show you each contain over an acre of new publicly accessible park space. But really trying to create something where the residents, the broader community can come in and have those park spaces to use. Also adding trail connections through the site along the exterior, but making sure we're doing those connections in an appropriate way. And again, making sure that we don't have vehicular connections to the adjacent single-family neighborhoods. And so we've got two concepts that we'll kind of run through quickly. The main difference between them is just the differences in the types of units and then slight changes to the layouts. But the concepts are really just to give you a feel for how the site could look. And again, we're early in the process. And so I think looking for feedback and, again, conversation with the community about how this site could be enhanced. And so concept sort of plan option one, which is on the screen, it's a mixture of townhouses and triplexes. And the triplexes are essentially, it's 3 units within a single structure. From the outside, it looks like a wider townhouse. But we really think that that's a type of housing option that creates a more attainable entry level for home ownership, and something that is really needed here in this area, but also throughout the county and frankly, throughout the DC area. All of those new units would be self-parked, so they'd have parking within the structure. And then moving the parking for the existing residents in that multifamily building to that one-story parking structure along the north side of the property. And then throughout the site, putting in parks, and those are what are outlined in purple on the screen, and then also trail connections throughout so that people can come onto the property and access those park spaces and frankly go through the site as well. And then significantly upgrading that Route 7 frontage with a lot of landscaping where that service drive currently is, putting in a shared use path, but really trying to create not just a visually appealing frontage, but also something that is much more comfortable for pedestrians as you're leading into the Seven Corners CBC. For, I guess, next slide, for option 2, again, very similar layout in terms of where things are located on the site. But what this concept shows are what are called stacked townhouses. And those are sort of exactly what they sound like. It's essentially 2 units on top of each other. But from the outside, it really looks like a townhouse. And again, we feel like that's a type of housing that provides a good attainable entry level for sale option as opposed to a townhouse or a single family detached home. Similar to the last concept, looking at the one-story parking structure on the north, the parks, the trails throughout, and then again looking at maintaining and enhancing the frontage along Route 7. So we're really excited about the potential for this site, how it can contribute to the broader community fabric. And again, looking forward to beginning a conversation. And so I think we're happy to answer questions or set up separate times to talk with the community to make sure we're getting the appropriate feedback. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. And with that, we will open it up to the floor for comments. If you wouldn't mind just raising your hand, and then we'll call on you in order. And I see Mr. Sage, you had your hand up first, sir. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Burton, Supervisor Menez, Mr. Adams, for taking your time to explain the project to us. My name is Matthew Sage. I'm the president of the Lee Boulevard Heights Citizens Association. We are the single-family residential area that's just to the east and south of the project site. And what I'd like to do is go over, we've done a formal write-up. I'm going to go through it as briefly as I can. We will be uploading this to the website and sending a copy to Supervisor Jimenez about some of our thoughts on the proposed project. And we have a number of our neighbors who are going to be speaking tonight. And Mike, if you wouldn't mind, I think I sent you an email. Have Lars go after me, and then have Cindy Covell go after him, and then open it up to the floor for everybody else, just so we can kind of hit on the same themes together. Having said all that, before I get too far, I just want to ask Mr. Adams just one quick question. I just kind of caught when you were talking. Are the townhouses that you're proposing, are they for sale, or are they going to be market rate lease units?
Yeah, so we're looking at those as for sale townhouses. And also the stacked townhouses and the triplexes would be for sale.
Okay, all right. That wasn't clear on the initial proposal that we were reading. So thank you for clarifying that. I apologize, it might be a little dry, but I'm going to read from my document here, just to kind of give you a sense of where we're at. We formed a working group within our neighborhood to kind of go over this, and we kind of generated the following thoughts, which will be elaborated a little bit more on with some people who follow me. Thank you all. Again, I just wanted not to be too negative out of the gate. We have kind of very strong reservations with what we've seen from this proposal. At the moment, we don't really feel like we can support this expansion because of several issues that we feel are kind of negatively impact our neighborhood. First one being, excessive building density, especially up along Olin. Increased stormwater management loads that we're anticipating because you're adding quite a bit of impervious surface here with the roadways and the buildings and the garage. There's potential for increased traffic on the neighborhood roads, increased parking on the neighborhood roads, especially from people who live out of the neighborhood. And also there's some quality of life problems that we'd like to kind of to talk about tonight with some of the other neighbors, because there's been some issues with Jefferson with some, basically, to be honest, some poor facilities management. There's noise, trash, landscape maintenance. We've not directly related to the Jefferson, but there's vagrancy in the area. Supervisor Jimenez is well aware. We've had some issues with some crime and vagrancy in the area that we've had a tough time dealing with. And the concern is that with all this open public space that we're inviting people to kind of come back and have those issues kind of crop up again. So having said that, I just want to dive into this a little bit in more detail. Again, the working group was established here to evaluate this SSPA nomination. And through our process, we've come up with the following kind of commentary we'd like to talk about. And again, I don't need any responses tonight necessarily, but just to kind of, and you'll get a copy of this later. But as far as land use is concerned, the existing allowable density in this site is R20. So doing some rough cocktail napkin calculations, we're at 13.06 acres. That would mean that really there should be only 261 units. We understand that maybe when the Jefferson first came about, there was affordable housing component that may have allowed it to get up to 24 dwelling units per acre, which is about where it really is right now with 301 units. But the expansion that you're talking about, we're going to be over 30 dwelling units per acre, which is kind of comparable to what's going on at the apartment complex to the north, which is pretty high density compared when you're right up next to single family houses. I assume, since this is for sale, that we're not talking affordable dwelling units here in any of these units. So that's why I asked about the for sale versus leased component. Given the fact that the for stacked units, there's a pretty high massing that's permitted under the zoning code right now, anywhere from 35 to 60 feet, depending on the configuration. Considering that you're right up against some single family homes, we're kind of afraid that especially on Olin, that you're going to be overwhelming the houses on the other side of Olin. And Olin is a very narrow street, as you can kind of see in some of the imagery, or if you've been there. So we're very concerned that there's just going to be too much going on in that very, very small scaled and narrow area. On the site plans, again, I know they're concept plans, but it's tough to tell what the proposed setbacks are. In the R20 zone, I mean, you've got a 5-foot setback on the front yard line. You've got a 10-foot setback on the side yard line. So if you're doing even a 35-foot townhouse against Olin and you're only doing the minimum 10-foot side yard setback, there's a potential there again to just exacerbate that kind of density issue that we're worried about. We have a little bit of concern, as I mentioned earlier. The sidewalk connection was a little bit confusing, to be honest with you, because what you're connecting to on either side, there's really no trail per se that goes. It's in the neighborhood. What you're showing the dashed line on the plans is really, you're kind of cutting through parking lots and streets. And in our neighborhood, we have a very limited number of sidewalks. It's more just kind of soft shoulders. So we don't really have a trail network that kind of cuts through the apartment complex in our neighborhood. So it's a little odd to us that you would kind of create a new trail on the backside of the property when there's not really an established trail to go to. So that's kind of what our curiosity was about that. Also, the fact that you're a public trail on a private path, I guess that means, I would assume that the Jefferson's going to be responsible for maintaining that path. Presumably, I don't know. I assume there's going to be a covenant of some sort where you have to maintain that. Segueing into the path and the green space, we've had some very difficult problems with stormwater management. Especially along Brook Drive. Again, we're very concerned with the amount of hardscape that you're proposing. The issues we've had a lot of outflow coming down to Brook Drive from the north, from all the developments that happened on the north on the other side of 50. So we're very afraid that we're going to get even more outfall and stormwater coming into Long Branch from the opposite directions, as we already have a very high water table. Neighbors have a tough time keeping water out of their basements here. The creek floods even in a moderate rain event. So it's all very, very concerning to have that much hardscape adding to our issues with that. Traffic and parking, we've also had quite a bit of problems with. we noticed that on the plan, you've got, I don't know if VICA has, when they did their analysis or their layout of the internal roadways, my understanding is the fire marshal requires, a certain amount of, a limit to the dead end length of those types of service roads, requiring turnabouts or connections to other roads. And it seems to us just from the start that long dead end that you've got against Olin doesn't really accommodate fire emergency vehicle traffic. And I just want to make sure that everybody's is crystal clear that we would be very strongly opposed to any connection for the internal roadways to be connected to Olin Drive. That would be a hill to die on, so to speak. But in general, we have a lot of issues with traffic and parking in general because there's not much enforcement of, especially parking rather, on our roads. They tend to get clogged fairly easily. The roadway, especially on Olin's, very narrow. We have buses from the schools that stop there at least 6 times a day, and maybe 7 if you count the late buses. And they dump off a lot of kids at the Jefferson, so they'll be standing there for like a half an hour or at some time just waiting for all those kids to get off. If you've ever seen the littles try to get off the bus, it takes a long time. And then just parking in general, the roads are very narrow. We get people from outside the neighborhood parking on our streets all the time, and we're just kind of concerned that added density is just going to mean more traffic through the neighborhood, more people parking where they shouldn't be parking. And so that's something that we would need to have addressed. And then to end up here, again, talking about property management issues. I know this isn't necessarily a zoning issue, but the Jefferson management, it's changed. My understanding is it's changed hands several times, but the one constant seems to be kind of a lack of maintenance on the property. Trash is a huge issue right now. The trash dumpsters are located on the east side of the site, facing a lot of our residents who live along Brook Drive, along the creek there, more toward the north side. So the trash is overflowing constantly and falling into the creek, causing some pollution issues. The landscape has not been really well maintained, especially along Olin. There's a lot of trees that fall down. There's trash that accumulates there. People tend to park there even though they're not supposed to. There are no parking signs. And then there's the usual things with, multifamily buildings. There's noise and there's lights that go on all night long. Amplified music. That is all things that we have to deal with on a constant basis. So again, it's a little concerning to have the intensity increase, and that might mean the problems increase as well. And then I'll wrap up by saying that the urban park, again, is a little bit of an issue, simply because there's a security issue there. For those, Supervisor Jimenez knows very well, we've had in the immediate area where the apartment building is, we've had some vagrancy and some crime that occurred around some open areas, and we're creating a new open area that's actually more inviting. And we've had neighbors who will explain that they've seen some illegal activity going on that green space, drugs and public urination and all of that. So it's going to require some kind of security management protocol to keep that clean and above board for the neighbors. Sorry, just checking my notes one more time. I think that's all I will say for the time being, because I know there are many other people in the neighborhood who want to speak, but thank you very much for listening. And again, I'll be submitting this to both to you, Mike, and to Supervisor Jimenez, this memo, and then we can talk about it further if we get past this.
And
phase.
thank you, Mr. Sage, for your comments. Mr. Burton, moving forward, there needs to be a cap at 2 minutes per speaker. This is going to be a very long night. We have a 2-hour window. I repeat, we have a 2-hour window.
Yeah.
Speakers need to be capped at 2 minutes.
Got it.
Again, Mr. Sage, thank you for your comment.
Can I ask who just spoke? Who just said that? Because we thought we had unlimited time. So
No,
can I
we
have
have unlimited time.
who's saying that?
I'm saying that.
Oh, you are. Okay, sorry, sir.
That's okay. I just want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to speak and everyone has an opportunity. Again, as mentioned at the beginning, one, you are all more than welcome to come to my office and make a meeting or make a meeting in my office. I'm happy to meet with all of you individually or together as a group. Two, there will be public comments as we move forward. This is by no means the last time everyone will have an opportunity to speak. I just want to make sure as the night progresses that it doesn't get too late and everyone has a fair chance to voice their opinion. So I'm here, I'm listening, but I do want to make sure that you all have an equal opportunity to speak. Thank you.
And
Absolutely.
if I could just very quickly, appreciate those comments and all good and valid, comments and frankly, a lot of things that we've already been thinking about as we've, looked at the property. And I would just say, would love the opportunity. I'll put my contact information in the chat, but would love to sit down with your working group and just actually dive into a lot of these issues. Again, I think there are ways to work through, most of the concerns that you've raised, and we'd love to do that. The only other thing I would just point out is the current owner of this property acquired it at the end of November of last year. So they're very new in terms of the sort of the maintenance of the property. But as part of kind of the sit down with the working group, I would be happy to make those introductions just so you can talk directly with them about any concerns on maintenance.
Well, thank you, Mr. Adams. Let's move on to speakers. Let's try to move this along, please.
All right, Mr. Longo, you're up, sir.
Thank you. I guess this comment's going to end up being a theme for all of the for all of these along Leesburg Pike. But I know that we have an effort, Envision Route 7, that has been in planning for, it's always like 15 years away. It's been 15 years away for the last 5, 10, 15 years. And it's important, at least in my mind, because anytime we're talking about adding density along this pike, we need to think about how it impacts especially the traffic. Never mind the schools, which are already overcrowded. So I'll let other people talk about schools because I'm sure that'll come up. But keep my comments focused on Envision Route 7. I noticed that the development's going straight out to essentially Route 7. I know this is conceptual plan, but and that looks good. I just want to make sure we're not boxing in the possibility of multimodal transportation options that Envision Route 7 could potentially be bringing, including BRT, bike lanes, and larger sidewalks. That's that was the envision of it. So that's it. And I don't know if staff has any insight on that they could share briefly.
Really quickly, when we were looking at the first Christian site directly across the street a few years ago, that also came up. I believe the right of way that's in front of the Jefferson would be considered in any road widening project, and that includes the Envision BRT as well. So that's certainly a part of our review, ensuring that those plan recommendations are met.
And I would just say from our perspective, we actually looked at the proposed right-of-way section for the proposed BRT to make sure we were not encroaching into what that anticipated right-of-way looked like.
Thank you, Scott. Our next speaker is actually Mr. Issa. I know that you dropped a comment that you wanted to speak.
Thank you very much, Mike, and thanks, Supervisor Jimenez, Mr. Adams, and really extend my thank you to the planning and the rest of Fairfax County, who I've been on the phone with, it seems like, for the last week. Michael, are you able to bring the presentation up there?
Yes, but we do want to be mindful of time. I can share.
I will race through it. So, but I just want to hit on the concepts. So just go to the next slide there. So the major objective of the Bailey's planning district, major objective number 1 is to preserve stable residential areas through infill development that is compatible. And you can pop to the next one. I did rewrite this just because I felt like there was a lot of extraneous words. So it just says the property is to be rezoned to R30 with unrestricted 32 dwelling units per acre. And I put a little note about the contingencies. I felt like the first one was not required. The second one was not beneficial. And the RPA is required now. I've added some slides at the end of the brief. We may not have time to look at them, but if you pass those on to the nominator so that they can see that I believe that there are things that need to be addressed now with the RPA. And so to kind of make an expansion contingent on adhering to the RPA, I want to, encourage them to get right with the RPA now. Next slide, please. I'm going to pass over these basic questions. I mean, there's kind of the height of the parking structure and the ingress and egress and kind of the development logistics. Like, can we shut Route 7, that one lane of Route 7 down to stage concrete trucks to go in there, and whether there's concurrent construction or we're going to shut down the whole building for the whole time of the construction and then reopen it. Those are things that maybe we can discuss with you, Mr. Adams, and with Supervisor Jimenez. I do want to say on this one, we'd love to invite you out for that meeting. I think a site survey, a little walk around your site, a little walk around our neighborhood would do us a great service to get the accuracy of the nomination. So I'm a picky guy, and I look at the details, and there were some inaccuracies that I think that would need to be remedied. We can go to the next slide. I mean, what's fascinating to me is I'm using red to actually rate this, and on every adjacent parcel, I believe is a red, and it's like, it's one thing if you end up with having a site that everybody else around you is sort of either it's incompatible or it harms them, but I think that this actually even harms the residents of the Jefferson right now. I think that if you go out on a Saturday and see the families, having a cookout between Olin Drive and the building there's a nice park space with trees. I think that probably that was the transition that was agreed to in the 60s, that to plant a tree buffer, and to remove that and overcrowd the lot. I believe does everyone a disservice. I think possibly the only winner is the LLC that owns it, but I don't even think on the long term that's even true. So I guess we'll to conclude to the next slide. I think that the 32 dwelling units is incompatible with every adjacent property as well as the resident. And the adoption of the nomination will have a negative economic impacts on the Fairfax County and the local stakeholders. And if we continue on this, I'd be happy to kind of share some of my economic analysis. I was really surprised to see that the tax value of the property has been going down, and in fact is actually lower than what the purchaser paid for the property. And then I would just say, if the nomination proceeds, please provide an accurate amendment on the narrative statement and the illustrative models and decision quality information. I think that the inaccuracies are actually harmful for the process. The next three slides are supplemental, we can go to the RPA ones just so Mr. Adams has a view.
Sir.
Pardon?
We've got to keep moving this along.
Okay, that's it.
We'll make sure that the information is forwarded, Mr. Issa.
Okay, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Appreciate what you guys do. Thank you.
Sir, and
Thank you, sir.
to come out for that site visit, sir.
Mrs. Brehe.
Great, thank you. I live in Falls Church. I'm very familiar with this area. I am not in the immediate neighboring community, but this is my community. I feel like this is an opportunity for some infill development, that we're repurposing surface parking lots with homes. And working in a parking garage to accommodate, the parking that is clearly needed down in that stretch. But the idea of providing more homes of different types, I was really impressed that there was the triplex and the townhomes, offers these different sizes and different price points. And this is especially if they're for sale. We're struggling with affordability issues because we don't have enough supply of housing. And this is a great opportunity to provide different types. And even for sale, folks can buy in, build equity, and that's a great sort of thing to be investing in. This area is planned for more enhanced transit, but there is existing frequent bus that runs along Route 7, comes every 12 minutes, hugely successful. We're going to work to sort of expand that. And I know somebody before me talked about Envision Route 7, right? So there's this BRT that's in the works to really build on what's already there to make it even better. And it's an opportunity to put more homes close to transit. It's close to the shopping center. It's good for walkability. Everybody's already walking and biking in this area. So this investment is an opportunity to fix that walking environment And I've heard some really great things about that Route 7 frontage that's so badly needed. I love the idea of converting the service road and creating something more inviting, like a mixed-use trail. Obviously, we want it to connect to things, so we want to be cognizant of what's, in the nearby areas. I also encourage you to think about how people bike through that corridor, because right now that infrastructure is also lacking, and there are a lot of people who bike and need to bike. So this is an opportunity, as I see it, to fix a lot of that stuff. I appreciate community concerns. It sounds to me that, as I'm looking at the concepts and the way it's designed, with some of the park pockets in certain areas and the buffer on the backside protecting the RPA also provides a nice buffer to that single family neighborhood on the backside. So I hope that as this process kind of goes on, that there's this opportunity to work with the community, figure out what works. But this seems like a really great opportunity that is worth further exploration and kind of moving it along. I also wanted to point out that by removing surface parking and adding updated stormwater facilities for the homes and the structured parking, we can actually improve that storm runoff and make things better. So that can be part of this process. So thank you. I live in Falls Church. I don't know what the questions are in the chat, but I live nearby. I'm invested in this area. I go to Route 7 Corners all the time. And I think this is great. And I want to say
Could you provide your address?
no.
Mr. Burton, let's move this along, please. I have now repeated this 3
I
times.
live down Route 50, just off of
Burton,
7
please.
Corners
Okay.
by Annandale.
I-
You need to know so
Can
Can
bad.
we address the issue with this particular?
No, you cannot interrupt me.
Well, hold on
Everyone-
one sec, folks. If we can, let me just
kidding?
recenter, folks. I want everyone to just relax. We will absolutely have an opportunity to hear everyone out. And any information that we need to consider as a part of this process will be forwarded to me, and we'll make sure that everyone who needs to know will have that information. Again, tonight is just to decide whether we study it at all. And so what would really be helpful when you're making your comments is please note the things that staff needs to take into consideration. If we are asked to evaluate this in the future, what are the things that we need to know? If they've already been mentioned, great. I'm taking notes here off to the side, so that's good. If you have something that hasn't been said already, please try to focus the comments. We do want to hear from everyone. It's an open process, whether you live immediately within the project or in the broader community.
Yeah, and I don't really appreciate being attacked.
It's okay, but it's okay. But
You have to move on. Mr. Burton, please, again, 4th time now request. Move this along.
Okay. All right. We'll keep things going. Mrs. Perkins, please, your turn.
2 minutes. I'm now keeping the timer. 2 minutes.
I don't understand why, I was supposed to be the 3rd speaker.
We're looking at hands. So if you look at the
So
bottom
my
of your
hand's been
screen,
up for a while. I don't mean to be irritated, but
you're not. It's okay. It's okay. Just hear me out really quickly. On the bottom of the screen, I can't see everyone that's speaking. I can only see what's being presented. So at the bottom of Zoom, there is a button that says React. It looks like a little heart shape. Click on the React button, and I think it will allow you to raise your hand. Actually, is that where you raise your hand? That might not be where you raise your hand. But we will get to you. I have it noted, and other staff has noted your name, Mrs. Koval. So we will get to you after we get through everyone else. Mrs. Perkins, go right ahead. I'm sorry.
all right.
I'm okay for her to go ahead of me if you're okay with that. Otherwise, I can.
No, it's fine. Go right ahead, please.
Okay. So, Latasha Perkins, I do live in the neighborhood. Actually, the property is considered my backyard. Our home is on the corner of Olin Drive and Brook Drive. So our household will be directly impacted by all of these changes that have been proposed. The green space would be in my backyard. The walkthrough would be in my backyard. The townhouses will be just behind my house. And so just for reference, I like to highlight the traffic situation. We're between 7 and Arlington Boulevard. And as you know, there's already a lot of traffic that comes through. So just highlighting that there will be more traffic. And as a mother of small children, I'm very concerned about the safety for the traffic and also the safety that was spoken of earlier with the green space. We already have lots of issues, people knocking on our door, random things coming in our yard as things are now. And I've been living here for 2 years. So the same 2 years that the current people own the property, for Jefferson, we've been living in our home on the corner of Olin and Brooks. So all those things that were said earlier were very important. The point that I want to emphasize as a family physician, one thing I'm very aware of is in addition to traffic, with traffic comes changes in air quality and pollution, and there's direct connection between asthma and respiratory issues when it comes to more traffic, something I'm highly concerned about, being that there are folks in my household, respiratory issues are a problem. I want the folks thinking of this to consider air quality and to come back with information on how air quality will be addressed, how we plan to mitigate potential health concerns that come with this traffic, and that come with this increased density, and direct answers about what we're going to do with safety, because I have a 6-year-old and I am currently growing another human who will be a baby when this all happens, and I am very concerned about the density, about the safety, about the traffic, about air quality, and about the health of not only my household, but the households within this, the neighborhood behind the Jefferson. These are very important factors, and I know that, development is great and more people moving in the area. Some people may be excited about, but for me, this is happening directly in my backyard. So would like these things to be taken into consideration, and would be happy to be a part of any meeting that you all have to do a walkthrough to explain to me how I can be okay, or how we're going to ensure that the health and safety of my family is not affected in a deleterious way. So looking forward to meeting and want to make sure those points were made. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you for yours. Mrs. Wadden or Mr. Wadden? Hassan?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hassan Wadden. I've been living in this neighborhood since the late 70s. I'm a fourth generation. I raised my kids, and my kids are raised their kids here. The Jefferson has always been a problem, but lately, within the last year or so, has been a nightmare. When you wake up every morning and look at your window at the, if you would show the pictures of the trash, please. That is looking at my backyard. Is that fair for me to look at that every single day? Is it fair for my grandkids not to be able to go to my backyard and they smell the marijuana that the people that are on Jefferson properties are smoking? The mattresses that are being dragged from the Jefferson property into near the creek where people are sleeping on them and doing wisely things on the mattress. Is it fair for my grandkids to ask me, what are they doing, Grandpa? Is it fair for me to have rats big as a cat in my property because of the trash that's overflowing from the Jefferson, the raccoons, the possums, and the foxes lately? As long as I've been living here, I haven't seen so many foxes that are sick, look sick, and I'm not a physician for animals, but I can tell you they're not well. All that has been, since at least the last year since these new owners got it, has been. If you could please show the picture so I can share it with my neighbors and other people, please. Are you able to?
I don't have any pictures, Mr. Wadden.
Well, I thought we sent the pictures in.
Okay, I don't have them at the moment, but I can definitely share them. But we do need to be
And then-
mindful of time.
Yeah, and on top of that, sir, to the person who's speaking on behalf of the Jefferson, why is there having dumpsters on your property facing other people's property so we can see the trash and diapers and animals going through them? The Jeffersons have a compact mechanism inside the building that's been broken for at least a year or so. Why has it not been fixed? To me, by you treating your neighbors the way you have, you don't deserve to expand at all. And the county should step up their authority and get that cleaned up. It's
So,
not
Mr.
fair to
Wadden,
us.
just to orient, this process won't address that concern. But we can forward that information and follow up with you about the existing maintenance of the site, because that seems to be a big priority. But the application itself as a part of our evaluation and review, won't be able to address that concern specifically. Not that it doesn't matter. It won't fit into this process. So we can
But
follow up with you on that.
yes, sir. But I just feel with my time left, I feel that it's going to get worse because
I understand.
they're not showing that they can take care of what they have now. So by
Gotcha.
adding all these units, and then these units going to be for sale. So these deep pockets, people from out of town coming to do whatever they want. The county's going to let them do what they want. And guess what? They're gone. They're going to sell this property and they're gone. But for us who has lived here for years and years and years, not just me, but my other neighbors across Brook Drive in Olin, we have been here for years. We don't just move in and move out.
Sir, we do have to move on. We have 2 more cases and we are not doing well.
Well, Mr. Menendez, it's affecting my family, sir. It affected my family.
Connect with you, but right now we need to speak about the cases that are in front of us.
All right, please send me, and we can, after this, Mr. Wadden, I'll have my email address. Please forward me any of the communication that you want shared with both the nominator and the planning commission and the board, and I'll make sure it's included.
Okay, well, thank you yourself for allowing me to speak, but I can't say that for someone else. Thank
Sure thing, sir. Sabrin?
Hi. Oh, sorry. All right. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
All right. So my name is Sabrina Wadden. I'm a 3rd generation resident of Lee Boulevard Heights, a Virginia attorney, and more importantly, a neighbor who has watched her childhood community deteriorate into a place where she no longer feels safe. My home backs up directly to the Jefferson. What happens there has spilled into my life and my neighborhood. This development has already failed our community as it has become a center for crime, open drug use, assaults, sexual assaults, carjackings, loitering, drug dealing, and students skipping school. This is what I witnessed day after day. I have personally found drug needles, broken liquor bottles, cigarette butts in my yard. I've smelled marijuana drifting into my home. I've seen and heard screaming, shouting, and fighting at all hours of the day. I have personally been a victim of attempted break-ins by criminals who hang out at the Jefferson. Drunks passed out on the lawn, and the smell of weed is daily. And now the county is seriously proposing to reward this failure with 101 more units and a parking garage. Really? The current density at Jefferson already overwhelms its limited security. Adding 100 more people to an already mismanaged property will intensify crime and further endanger our families. You are not fixing a problem, you are pouring gasoline on a fire. This expansion will create more blind spots, places where criminal activity will continue to thrive, and the parking garage will become a crime incubator, giving criminals exactly the kind of environment they will use to operate in secrecy. If you build this, you are constructing infrastructure for danger. Increased resident flow means increased criminal traffic throughout our neighborhood. The path from Jefferson throughout our community is already a pipeline for illegal activities. Throwing more units and a garage on the failing system doesn't fix anything, it magnifies the dysfunction. If the county is really serious about revitalization, then prove it. Fix what's broken before approving more. Don't gamble with public safety under the illusion of improvement. Further, our streets are already congested. Cars are parked on both sides of the road. Where is the impact analysis emergency vehicle response? What happens when someone's child is choking and the ambulance can't get through? I worry every day that if someone in my family, a child, has a medical emergency, first responders won't be able to reach us in time. I live here and I see the gridlock. I know how long it takes just to get out of the neighborhood, let alone for a fire truck to navigate through it. You're on notice now. If someone dies because vehicle rescues can't get through, it won't be an accident. It will be the consequence that you were warned about and chose to ignore. We are families, we're taxpaying residents who deserve protection. And our safety should not be an afterthought. And I have a question. If one of us is harmed, will the county take responsibility when we sue? Because we will.
Thank you, Mr. Sabrin. Get back to the top. I'm sorry. Casey, and I'm not going to mess up your last name.
Okay, there, I'm unmuted. Thank you. And thank you everybody for all the comments. I see there's a lot of heat here and I think that needs to be addressed at a point in time as well. I want to get specifically to this project and why I'm concerned about it. I live here in the neighborhood at Brook. I'm just down the street from Olin. The traffic issues that occur on Olin on a daily basis with the use of the mosque, with the use of the school buses that are getting kids to and from school, these are all wonderful things. There's no infrastructure for it. And that's what people are talking about, blocked ambulances. We are stuck for half an hour. People will start turning around so they can go out Route 50. On Fridays, none of us use Rose Street to get out of the neighborhood. My concern about the townhouses going in there is if we back up the townhouses onto Olin, I can see the owners of those townhouses using Olin as a secondary parking spot. In other words, they're not going to go through through their complex. They're probably only going to have 1 to 2 spaces per townhouse. And most families have 1 car per person nowadays, no matter their income level. And we're going to just have too much congestion there. I want to go back to talking about the schools again, the overcrowding in the schools that are currently happening. We're doing such a huge disservice to our youngest population. And those are the people that are going to hopefully grow strong and build an even better community, but they can't if they're not learning properly. I'd also like to go to the Route 7 issue and how taking over that space for greenery. And I love the idea and I love the concept, but it's one of those great in concept, not great in execution. When directly across the street, just a little way up, we're talking about putting, I think, 600 units into the Sears parking lot or to the Sears thing there. We're creating a major glut of traffic on Route 7 that we already can't sustain. So adding the 101 units to the Jefferson, I see is a major impact to traffic and to just our quality of life. And one last thing, because I want to be quick and let everybody talk. When we have rain, it comes down from Route 50 and it's a river down our street. It just literally, you can look out, it's kind of beautiful, but it goes down. Now, if we have the same thing because of all the impervious spaces that are going to be built on the new Jefferson possibility, we're now doubling that. And we're really hitting that storm drain that's there and that washes out to the Chesapeake. We're really creating a major thing there that could wreak havoc that we're not truly aware of yet. So I really want those to be the major issues that I possess. And I want to be part of any meetings with Mr. Adams and you too, Mr. Jimenez.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. We're going to end for the Jefferson right after Mrs. Koval speaks. I got you covered. I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that because I was a little confused. We'll get the hand stuff down.
Zoom and I,
third speaker.
Zoom and I are not best friends, so trust me, I understand.
We will be in the future, though.
But please, the floor is yours.
Okay, let me get to the point. Stormwater. And that was just brought up. That is a major thing. Okay, it's my understanding that the Long Branch stream that runs behind us runs in not only our jurisdiction, but to Arlington, to Falls Church, to Alexandra, into the Potomac River. That Potomac River is used for water for us to drink in that area. So by increasing that surface water for the Jefferson, of which I've not, we hoped to the mitigation is addressed. We don't have the infrastructure in our neighborhood. The Jefferson is on the top of the hill. And as Casey pointed out, we've got water. I live off of Olin. We've got it coming down Olin. We'll have it come down on both directions. So we have an issue with the watershed, the Chesapeake watershed. All that water is going to go there. Now, if you look at the increased surface, we're talking buildings, we're talking roadways, we're talking sidewalks, we're talking additional gravel. And these park areas, there should be a study. What is the impact of these additional surface areas? You are impacting the future generations, and also not our neighborhood, the neighborhoods on the side of us, in addition to Arlington, in addition to other counties. I would say this proposal on storm water should be addressed and asked by the state of Virginia, because you have multiple jurisdictions involved. Arlington is really watching the stormwater. They monitor that stream for the speed of water that comes down, and 80% of that is coming from us. So we need to be very careful with what we approve for stormwater. So I'll go on. That'll be my big issue. I also want to point out tree canopies. Along Olin, there are mature trees. It is my understanding for the climate resilience, we need trees. We need mature trees. You're going to be knocking down all of these trees along Olin that help for the canopy, the tree canopy. And it's my understanding that Fairfax is encouraging street trees more, not less. So I'll leave it at that. Stormwater is a major issue. Oh, I might also point out, we're also got the one quick thing. You have potential issues for floodplain. That is a floodplain by that stream. So we need to get FEMA involved. We need to know if flood insurance is going to increase on the neighbors. We need to know what the Jefferson and the surrounding people are going to do about flood insurance. Is we have to pay more for flood insurance? What is the commercial aspect of flood insurance? And then, like our other neighbor mentioned, what potential impact are we going to have with increased water? We know because the environment of additional water and additional storms, we saw California, we saw Vermont, we've seen it's coming, it's here. And how are we going to prepare for it? And who's going to be impacted? Is Fairfax County and VDOT going to put in? Who's going to put in? We just spent $1 million repairing sewer stuff in our neighborhood. I'll leave it at that. There's lots of issues.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Koval, for your comments and for your patience. Again, if you have thoughts on any of the items tonight and you don't have an opportunity to speak, or if you would prefer to send me an email directly, we will make sure that all of the public information is documented. Can't thank you enough, all of you enough for your patience, but we'll keep the agenda moving really quickly here. Let me pull up my presentation once more. Okay. All right, this always takes a little more time. Ring 2. Okay. Can everyone see that? Just yell at me if you can't.
Yes, we see it, Mike.
Okay. All right, for our second nomination tonight, this is for CPN 25 MA 02020. This is for the former Sears site in Seven Corners.
You're talking about the Sears site now too.
It's currently located at 6211 Leesburg Pike.
Fairfax County.
Can you please mute everyone else, please?
Let me look on that. No.
Here we go.
Okay. You see pen. A reminder to please mute your audio. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all. So the site is currently planned, or actually the subunit that this site is located in is within the Seven Corners Land Unit C. That includes 2 additional adjacent parcels, the office building just to the north of the Sears site, to the right of your screen, and the office building on the other side of Juniper Lane, that's to the left side of your screen. All 3 sites are part of the same subunit. The subunit itself is planned at a 0.5 FAR with an option for up to 539,000 square feet of mixed-use development. The proposal that we'll be looking at tonight is requesting residential use at a 1.75 FAR. That would include up to 600 residential units with a modest amount of supporting ground floor retail. Really quickly, this is one of the concepts that was shared. This was the highest density concept. It identifies 2 multifamily structures along Leesburg Pike. A modest amount, I would say, of retail space along the roadway. This would be ground floor retail. And then as a transitional use, single family attached townhomes along the rear of the property, as well as public open space. And with that, I will turn the floor over to Mr. Mike Van Atta to speak to the justification of this nomination.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Can everyone see my presentation that I have up here?
Yeah, we can see it, Mike.
Great. Well, thank you all for having us tonight and for the really good discussion. I think it is an important discussion to have on these collective sites. So I'm Mike Vanat. I'm a senior land use planner with the law firm McGuire Woods. I'm also joined by representatives from the property owners of the Sears site, Juniper Lane Associates, LC. As many of you know on the call, the Sears site in Seven Corners has been mostly vacant for many years. And I think, a lot of what I've heard recently, just even on this conversation tonight, is that the status quo, frankly, is not acceptable. And I know there's some questions about density and impacts to the neighborhood. And I think what I'm going to try to lay out here is that development options on the property can actually help achieve some of the goals of the community. And so we want to talk about a range of options here. It's early in the process, and we really want to get your feedback. And so I'm going to try to keep my remarks a little more brief. But really where the Sears Seven Corners site is positioned these days is it has not been contributing positively to the tax base or to the local community, but it's also not been able to take advantage of the redevelopment vision that was already set in the Seven Corners plan. And there's planning recommendations in there that are laudable, but they're a little too specific in some instances, and they're frankly just misaligned with today's market conditions. And so really what we're seeing the opportunity as a part of this site-specific plan amendment process is to explore some options, to value engineer that vision for this Sears site, to ensure a viable path forward for this site, and ultimately to serve as a community asset. Just moving forward, I think we all know where the Sears site is if you're on this call, so I don't need to spend too much time on that. Getting to sort of the existing conditions and the current development, it's a little over 8 acres. As you know, the building used to be used as the Sears department store, but the remainder of the property is mostly surface parking and a 1-story parking deck, and so that renders the site almost entirely impervious. And like many similar areas, Seven Corners has witnessed commercial vacancies for both office and retail uses. And obviously department stores aren't what they used to be due to a range of factors, including online shopping and other macroeconomic trends. But, in recent years, this site has been mostly vacant and there was some ancillary auto-oriented uses towards the back of the site. The property is now 100% vacant. Sears does continue to lease the property and pay rent, so it is an income generating use for the owners, but I think we can agree it's not the highest and best use necessarily, nor the most productive use of land for the overall community. The site is zoned commercial. It does not have any governing zoning approvals on it, and so as such, the site could be developed by right with a range of commercial uses without any further county regulatory approvals. But that said, we do want to focus on a redevelopment strategy under the regulatory framework afforded by this SSPA process that we think maximizes the benefits for this site and in the overall community. So I think it's important to talk about what the current Seven Corners comprehensive plan says for the Sears site today. The plan that was adopted over 10 years ago now, I think, envisions the property being redeveloped as a robust mixed-use village containing over 300 residential units and over 135,000 square feet of commercial uses. And in some ways that made sense at the time. I think there were some questions about how that was going to get implemented. But really that specific mix of uses calling for office, calling for entertainment, and that level of retail, it's just not commercially viable on this property, both in a sort of a macroeconomic sense, but also just given this location. It's really not attainable here, and that's why we haven't seen that move forward. That level of mixed-use development requires significantly greater density in order to implement that vision. And you've got competition from places like Mosaic, City of Falls Church, Ballston, Shirlington that really have a better framework for that sort of level of mixed-use development. That being said, we see an opportunity to retain the quality of redevelopment that was previously imagined, but with meaningful adjustments to the use mixes for a more realistic development path. And what that really means is probably a shift towards more residential, a little bit less of the commercial component, given where we're at in today's market. But we've put forward 3 different options. I'm going to run through them very quick here and then try to open it up for discussion to show where our thinking is, but we also want to get your pulse for where you think the right direction for this site is. And so in no particular order, we've got option 1, This is a predominantly a townhome development. Almost, I think, the residential use mix would be 100% townhomes. That's approximately 130 townhomes with the addition of a standalone retail pad at the corner. This is a lower density option that focuses on a homeownership product. In fact, it's actually the density would be about half of what is currently permitted in today's comprehensive plan. And in some aspects, we think could be a really good transition to the adjacent stable residential neighborhoods compared to what was approved in the comprehensive plan a number of years ago. On the sort of moving up to the spectrum, we have another option that is a mix of townhomes, condo flats, and a higher density mixed use apartment building with ground floor retail. This is about 340 residential units, which is comparable to the current Seven Corners plan in terms of residential units, but without the scale of commercial density that was initially adopted as a part of that Seven Corners comprehensive plan. And then finally, this is the option that Mike Burton had put on his screen earlier. This is the upper end on the density spectrum, and this really reinforces the amount of density that's needed to truly give you that that vision that I think the initial plan was looking for. But transitioning some of those commercial uses into residential units. So this is a little over 500 residential units. I think in our initial nomination, we said it could, depending on the exact unit type, could be up to 600 residential units. But really the overall density of square footage of development is not all that different than what's in the plan today. It's just shifting that commercial square footage to residential. And so in all these options, I think we're committed to a small scale commercial, footprint here to support the overall development on the property, whether that's the lower density townhome option or something that's a little more dense like this. We see a lot of merit in these different options here, but really with the Seven Corners Shopping Center across the street, and some of the issues related to getting in and out of commercial retail on the site, it really isn't feasible to do a commercial heavy mixed use development on the property, and that's just why we haven't seen that today. So just to wrap up, summarizing why we're here again, there's a vacant commercial property at the edge of Seven Corners Revitalization District, and we see some opportunities here for a more viable development path. We do think we can carry forward the previously established principles in the Seven Corners plan, and apply those to this redevelopment. And that includes a lot of the things that we've already heard tonight, but including pedestrian-oriented design, streetscape improvements, new green space and park space, enhanced connectivity. And frankly, those are details I think we're committed to hone in on, as we continue forward in this process. I'd also offer that the concept plans at this point are concept with a capital C, and they're flexible and can respond to some of the greater Seven Corners transportation projects, whether that's the BRT or other improvements, and we certainly don't see that as an either or on this front. We do think it's important to establish a buildable development path that can bring new housing opportunities that really aren't available in Seven Corners area. We have not seen new rental apartments or for sale townhomes in the Seven Corners Revitalization District in a very long time, and we do think that there's a meaningful mix that can bring about some other improvements to this site, and again recognize the need for sort of a cohesive approach to the overall area. I will say that new development on this site, through the regulatory process, you get the benefit of some really high quality requirements and standards that have to be met, and particularly on the environmental lens. Again, this site is almost entirely impervious, and so we've got the opportunity here to actually reduce impervious surface, have new stormwater management measures that currently do not exist on the site today, new landscaping and street trees, again, new park spaces, green building certification, and ultimately a proposed development that will seek to balance some of the site activation goals here, but with the neighborhood compatibility that I think some of us are focused on. So again, really appreciate your all's time tonight. I want to get to the discussion point here. So again, it's early on. We want to hear your feedback. We're excited to embark on this with you all, and hopefully we can find a consensus here as to what is a viable redevelopment path that the community can be proud of. So why don't I stop there and look forward to opening the discussion.
Mr. Bernetta, thank you very much for that. And I just want to say this in trying to be very clear and anticipate anything that happened previously in the last case. I would like for everyone to stick to this topic. if you have questions on this specific case, please ask them now. And I really would like to see everyone, we're all adults here, please be respectful of everyone else. Even if you don't agree with everyone's opinion, we're all entitled to our own opinion. There's a time and a place where we can have those other conversations, but this is not the forum to start pointing fingers, to start laying blame, to do any of those things. This is just an opportunity in a very early stages to ask Mr. Vanetta for specific questions on this specific proposal. Again, nothing has been decided. Nothing will be decided tonight. And I implore you, please try to keep your comments 2 to 3 minutes. There's other people behind you. There are other folks who would like to speak, and we still have one more case. Again, last time, let's please remember we're all neighbors and we're all adults. We all live in a community together. With that, Mr. Burton, I will pass it on to you so that you can begin the Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Mr. Longo, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I and some of my neighbors, first of all, I live in Sleepy Hollow Manor, which is right behind the Sears parcel. I know that we worked very hard in getting some current language in there regarding the Shadeland cul-de-sac, and we need to make sure that that is preserved. But going forward, I know that we really like what was in the Seven Corners plan now, and it is. I know a lot of my neighbors are frustrated that these plans diverge so greatly. Personally speaking, I'm open to considering these, but the biggest issue that I have is the complete lack of, I guess there's a token amount now of community serving retail. That's just, it's not enough. I would, if these went through, these kind of concepts and this language went through as it is, I know myself and a lot of my neighbors would rather it stay vacant, to be honest. That's where we're at. But if we can see meaningful improvements in the community servingness of the site, the loss of office, sure, that the entertainment district, fine. I mean, those are understandable. But the retail, this is a retail hotspot in Seven Corners. And there's really never any vacancies over across the street. So it doesn't box that it can't, retail can't thrive here. So ground serving retail, want to see more of that. And let's talk a little bit more about the density. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me clarify. We actually have two Millers. Clyde, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Thomas Miller had his hand raised first. Thank you, sir. Sorry about that.
Thank you. I'll be really quick. This is an awful forum to have this kind of presentation to the community. I suggest you hold another meeting with the community on each specific property, please. I mean, you talk about a public process. This is not a public process. I've lived on Juniper Lane for a long time. I remember when the Sears store was built by right. It was a Lord and Taylor. And then it was a Caldor. Now it's been a Sears, and it's been vacant for 5 years. We know that. But it's very short-sighted for the county. Before they adopt their budget for 2025, 26, to say, we don't want commercial development. We're going to go with residential. And then raise our taxes. Because my property taxes have gone up significantly in the last few years. And if you're going to abandon commercial in Seven Corners, then does that mean the same thing for Bailey's Crossroads? I mean, this whole area has deteriorated significantly. what are the county's economic development goals for this property? I mean, if you're going to tell me it's residential, then, you know, where's the commercial going to go in, you know, this has been there for 60 years. You're taking that off the tax records. Keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Machowski?
Thank you. Hi, Michael. Hi, Supervisor Jimenez. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is an important discussion, obviously, and as a neighbor, you're very much aware of that. So I want to thank you for joining. Just a quick question, a comment, and something that I want to encourage the staff to do. Mr. Van Atta correctly noted that the current plan for the site was adopted in 2015, 10 years ago, but there was literally a community process, a detailed community process that lasted for 3 years of looking at this site before the current plan was agreed to. I had the opportunity, fortunately or unfortunately perhaps, to serve on the second wave of that. And we had an extensive process. Several options and alternatives were considered. Folger Pratt was an active participant in that process. They originally came to the community and wanted to build 1 million square feet of residential development on the site. That changed over time, but that was Folger Pratt's vision for this site in 2013. But this was an extensive process. I just want to encourage the staff to look back into that. I'm sure the records still exist. Understand, the various concerns raised by the community, but that should be the starting point. The starting point should be, where was the community after that process, and how can we tweak that, perhaps at the margins, to accommodate the changed marketplace that the developer faces today. And when I say tweak, from my perspective, it's small tweaks. There certainly could be an argument that space for commercial, it may not be the best use of the space. But again, 3 years of extensive community engagement, extensive community participation. This process that we will go through now is just a fraction of what was done back then. And I think we need to respect that, respect the time that the community members put in, respect the time that the county staff put in, respect the time that the supervisors put in, and again, use that as our starting point if we're going to sort of revision this site going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Really appreciate it. Just to make a quick note, we're going to hold additional public comments past Mr. Carlos so that we can ensure enough time for the next meeting. So we'll give it another 10 minutes for the remaining 4 speakers. Casey, the floor is yours.
Hi there, thanks. Again, I believe that Sears does need to be redeveloped. I agree that it does need to have a lot of more stuff looking into it. But if we were to do a mixed use with retail as well as housing, I think that's great. I had heard that there was going to be a 55 and up community possibly in there. Is that a true rumor, or are we still just at a very conceptual spot?
I would just answer that quickly. Right now, that there's nothing sort of specific about the development program in terms of age. So, I mean, we have not put forward, an option saying that this needs to be a senior living community. Could it? Maybe. I mean, if that's what we want to go down that path, we could talk about it. But that's not really what we've put forward here.
Right. Okay. So those are my 2 main things, and then of course I'm going to mention traffic in schools again. That's all.
Awesome. Thank you, Casey. Mrs. Swanson.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate the time, and I'll be very brief. Like Marty, I was involved in this process the first time. During the engagements that kicked off, I was on the Ravenwood Park Civic Association board, and so appreciated the deep engagement as Marty raised. And would just say that many of my neighbors in Ravenwood Park, as we've discussed this proposal, would raise a few concerns for staff, which is that this proposal is a significant increase beyond what we carefully planned and agreed on. And we worry about things like the unacceptable demands of public facilities. The school overcrowding has been mentioned, the cut through traffic. It's already a significant challenge. I live right on Patrick Henry Drive. We've got the school traffic. We've got a lot of commuters who are trying to cut through. That's why we did the RTAP program. We also are worried about parking demand. We've got folks coming from outside the neighborhood. It's been a challenge with Justice High School. As you know, it's another separate issue. But our neighborhood bears the brunt of a lot of challenges with parking from the apartments and nearby areas. It's just a busy area. And then worsening traffic on 7. It's already very difficult for us to get out, get to the neighborhood with many folks going back to work. It's an additional concern. So the bottom line from Ravenwood Park, with your appreciation of your consideration, is that we would request that you reject this amendment as is, and as Marty raised, go back to some of those historical records about the careful work and compromises that our neighbors worked on with developer, and in light of market conditions, continue to talk about how we could tweak on those carefully laid agreements that we set up about 10 years ago. So appreciate your time tonight, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Swanson. We appreciate that. Clyde Miller, Mr. Miller, it's your floor, sir.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. I will send you written comments. So there are 3 issues that it should not be accepted as it is, the plan amendment. The first one is it increases the floor area that would be allowed on the Sears site by 70% above what the current plan allows. You shake your head because you misunderstand, Mr. Van Etta. And you misstated in your introductory remarks the floor area that's currently planned for the Sears site. The unit C is planned for 539 square feet, not Sears site. The Sears site is planned for about 336 square feet of floor area. But let me just finish my statement. It increases the floor area on the Sears site by 70% above the current plan. And that's way too much. Secondly, the current plan recommends 25% of the area on the Sears site would be for amenities, for office, retail, and entertainment. 25%. This plan has a touch more than 1% of that, of 623,000 square feet dedicated to retail. So 25% in the current plan, 1% in this plan. The third point is we should anticipate that the Mark building, which the ownership of the Mark building and the Sears site are intertwined. And we should anticipate that the next step in this process will be the proposal that the Mark building would be redeveloped at the same time the Sears site is redeveloped. And that would put that much more, and again, at the same floor area ratio, 70% more than what's in the plan with 1% of amenities. So finally, in my opinion, it is simply wrong to use the highly abbreviated one-page site-specific plan amendment process to glibly propose increasing the density on the difficult Sears site by 70%, while all but eliminating the mixed-use objectives so evident in the current plan. Misusing the SSPA process risks polarizing stakeholders and impeding progress on redevelopment. Finally, the SSPA website provides a table to summarize the applications received. That material grossly misrepresents the current plan for 7 Corners, and Mr. Van Etta just did the same thing. It states that the plan recommends 539 square feet on the Sears site, while in fact the 539 square feet is for the entire land unit C. So a very large increase in floor area is misrepresented on the website as a relatively small increase, potentially misleading stakeholders who depended upon the SPA website for reliable information. So it is utterly indisputable. It is apparent that the Sears site should be taken out of the SSPA process. We should not try to adjudicate these issues this way. Just take it out of the process. Let's go about it the right way and see if we can't make some progress. But this is just wrong. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Just to restate really quickly, this is the very beginning of the process. So there will need to be future meetings for each of these nominations.
I hope not.
And
I hope
well,
not.
if gotcha. If they are to move forward, we would absolutely have to have individual make individual considerations of each of these nominations and work with the community. So just want to make that aware.
If I
Our
could
next
just make
speaker, Mr.
a
Carlos.
very, very
Oh,
quick clarification.
yeah.
And Mr. Miller, I really do appreciate, the comments and the attention to detail, and as well as everyone else who's been involved on this property, for so long. And there's nothing about this SSPA process that is an attempt to sort of circumnavigate the collective stakeholders' input, and sort of overlook the amount of detail that was put in last time. I think that's what we're expecting here. We want that sort of collaboration. And so that's, really what this is about. This is the available tool that the county has identified to have these conversations. And so, I think we look forward to continuing to talk about these things, and not just look at the site in a vacuum either. And so I appreciate the dialogue, and frankly, I think this is the type of stuff we want to talk about. So I'll just
Well,
leave
I
it
don't
there.
want to talk
Appreciate it.
about it. It's simply the wrong process for these issues. That's all.
And
Thank you.
yeah, I just know we just have like another minute before we have to go to the last item on the agenda. I know there are people waiting. I would encourage those of you that don't get a chance to comment right now to please give us your comments in writing, and we'll keep adding the link in the chat. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. Actually, Mr. Carlos, go right ahead, sir. And if you're speaking, Mr. Carlos, I think you might be on mute. Okay, I think we may have lost him. William Reinhardt.
Hello? Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, is this Carlos?
Yes. Hi.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll be really quick. I don't believe this is gonna be any helpful for the density here. Right now there's already a problem with on-street parking where it's just been a problem. Right now if you go to Patrick Henry, if you go from Seven Corners, like this Route 7, all the way to I believe it's Peyton or Randolph, there's so many cars that are just legally parked. And the density that these units will bring will just be unfeasible for any amount of parking that there already is. Or I don't know how will there be any more space for that. And that's all.
So thank you, sir. And our last comment, Mr. Reinhardt, go right ahead, sir. You're on mute, Mr. Reinhardt, sorry.
Really quick question and short comments.
Sure.
What does adding a project to the work program consist of? What follows that?
Great question. So after an item is added to the work program, it's assigned, a planner is assigned to the study.
Okay.
And then we will work with, the study is basically an opportunity to review all of the specific considerations that you all have noted. So looking for opportunity and impact analysis, looking at traffic, looking at schools impacts, stormwater management, you name it. We work with other agencies as a part of a study to come up with recommendations. We try to identify if we can mitigate any of the potential impacts or enhance any of the opportunities. It also involves basically a more in-depth staff review about all of the specific elements that I've just mentioned. So we have not had the opportunity to do that yet as a part of SSPA. That's not what this sort of portion of the process is for. Right now, we're just trying to understand what those considerations should be if it moves into a study.
Got it. That's extremely helpful, and I hope hopefully helpful for others on the call here. So really just a couple quick points. Top line, I don't think I could support the three alternatives as presented. And I'll echo the same issues that everybody else has echoed. Too high development, no green space that would benefit the community, and exacerbates an already seriously challenging traffic problem and high volume traffic corridor that we live in here in Seven Corners. That's all I got. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reinhardt. I really appreciate that. All right, let me get back to my presentation and we will move on to our third and final nomination for the evening. Again, just let me know if you all are not able to see the slide.
We can see it.
Awesome, thank you. So our last nomination this evening is for MA023. This is for 5521 Leesburg Pike. It's known as the Food Star site. It's currently developed with the Food Star grocery store. The subunit that this site is situated on is currently planned for up to 2.5 FAR. That includes 1,300 residential units and up to 65,000 square feet of retail for the portion of the unit that's north of Seminary Road. I'll highlight it really quickly. If you can see the very faint white dotted line, this is the subunit. I believe it's subunit B5. The apartment complexes, the multifamily units that are south of Seminary Road, are not a part of this plan option. So it just refers to this block between Seminary Road, Leesburg Pike, up to the Skyline boundary and Carlin Springs Road. The proposal that we'll be looking at tonight focuses on the Food Star sites, approximately 3.8 acres. This proposal would like to include 1,309 units, residential units, multifamily, with an additional 37,000 square feet of retail use and an increase in building heights that are currently maxed at 14 stories up to 20 stories. Really quickly, this is the concept that was shared as part of the nomination. I'm sure the nominator will speak to this concept a bit more here in a moment, but I do just want to note that our consideration when looking at the concept is just for the portion that's on the Food Star site. So building D in that concept is not included as a part of this nomination. This is a broader concept. And it shows a number of 20-story multi-level buildings. I think 3, building A, building B, and building C, with a modest amount of retail in building A. And with that, I will turn the floor over to Mrs. Sarah Mariska to speak to the Food Star nomination.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks everyone for being patient. Appreciate everyone's attention. I'm Sarah Mariska with Odin Feldman Pittleman, and with me here is George Hong on behalf of the owner and nominator. And I will be brief. This site, maybe Michael, if we could go to the next slide. I think my slide showed very well where this is located and everyone is familiar with it. And we can go to the next slide. And I think I just want to make a point that I think, again, people are very familiar with, which is that this site, I think many of you probably remember it as the Toys R Us site. And it really is dated. It's largely impervious surface, and it's a building that was built in 1960 that does currently house a approximately 50,000 square foot grocery store and largely surface parking. But as you can see in some of these images, we are proximate to Skyline, which has buildings in the range of 20 to 26 stories. And if we go to the next slide, Mike, this site was contemplated for a redevelopment option. And we are here tonight to bring forward that idea to a little bit of a different idea and thinking about higher building heights, but really just a change in height and unit count that the owner is seeking. We do not have a development plan. We don't have a developer. We are looking at options for the future and really thinking that instead of what was previously shown in this concept, going to the next concept, something that would allow taller buildings. This would be structured parking, either underground or structures, would allow for kind of larger parks, less impervious surface than exists, and would really go towards addressing the housing crisis that I think we all know is a big part of Fairfax County and the region today. So really, we are here very early with only a concept to show what this could be at some point in the future. We are looking at this as a way of taking advantage of the bus rapid transit that's planned along Leesburg Pike and really taking this outdated site into a much nicer, different option than what exists today. We are early, but we are happy to listen to feedback and incorporate that as we look at these concepts. George, I don't know if you wanted to add anything, but and I do see quickly the concept, we are hoping and planning to incorporate the food store into this development in the future that has been contemplated as being part of this development.
Awesome. Mr. Hong, if you did want to chime in, feel free to, sir, at any point. I'll go ahead and stop sharing and we will open the floor just as soon as I can see the chat. Mr. Reinhardt, I didn't know if your hand was still raised from the previous comment or if you raised it for this one from the previous nomination. Okay, got it. All right. Any commenters for MA023?
There was a question in the chat about whether the grocery store would be relocated or not. I think it's a question for Sarah. Yeah.
Which I just answered that yes, the plan is to
you did.
the grocery store into the building. And just to also answer the next question, the buildings at Skyline, the tallest tower at the point of Skyline is 26 stories, with the majority of the residential buildings being about 20 stories.
Any additional?
Yeah, looks like
DS. I don't know.
and there's a okay, yeah.
Can you tell us with regard to the BRT, what is the timeline there? Are we looking at 15 to 20 years away?
You know what? I think that's the $1 million question. And if I had the answer, I would love to share it with you. What I can say is that very preliminary engineering work has been done just to look at the length of the site, but nothing formal. VDOT is obviously a part of any improvements, would need to be a part of any future improvements. Our planning staff, the FCDOT, Fairfax County Department of Transportation, is evaluating it. As we're looking at amendments along the corridor, we are trying to ensure that the appropriate right-of-way is kept so that future improvements could be accommodated. But as of right now,
yeah, Mike,
it hasn't been.
Kyle Kelly's here. He may have
I'm sorry,
additional
Kyle.
answer.
Oh, sure thing. Yeah, I can go ahead and jump in. So, hi, everybody. This is Kyle Kelly with the Fairfax County Department of Transportation. So, in regard to the Route 7 BRT, so it's still early on right now. It's in terms of where it is in the timeline. So, there's still a lot more study and analysis that would need to be done for the BRT before that is ultimately constructed. So, it is still a ways out, given where we are right now. And what we'll be doing next is more studies and analysis of the next phase. So we will be looking at the portions from the City of Falls Church down to Alexandria that would cross through Seven Corners and Bailey's Crossroads along Route 7. The part further up towards Tyson's is a bit further along. And if anybody is interested in knowing more about where we are with the Route 7 BRT, if you want to put your email in the chat, I'm happy to provide more information and more details about where we are and can provide any updates as we go throughout that process.
Kyle, why don't we do it the other way and have you put
Send
your
them to me.
email address?
Or to me, if you since
either way works for me,
and
yeah.
then I'll make sure that we forward it.
And I'll go ahead and put my email in the chat as well if anybody wants to reach out to me via email. So thank you.
Okay, and one other question related to transportation and that level of intensity at the Food Star. What is the closest metro, and how far away is that?
I believe that would be the West Falls Church metro station would be the closest one to here, most likely.
It would be probably Ballston.
It could be
maybe
Ballston.
East Falls. I think that would be, but it's not within walking distance.
It's definitely not within.
So this would be about having connectivity just to this area, to Bailey's Crossroads, to different modes. But
that's a huge issue. I think that needs to be considered here significantly.
Yes. Thank you. Yep. Thanks.
I'll just add to that we have accommodated the latest and greatest cross sections for the bus rapid transit. As Kyle mentioned, it's still early days, but there have been refinements to those cross sections that we have been incorporating as we've looked at the site, with the understanding that that would need to be accommodated in any redevelopment. And to respond to a couple other things, we do not know exactly how much parking would be provided because it would ultimately depend on the unit mix and the unit type in terms of the types of bedrooms and whether this is, for example, independent living for seniors or whether it would be traditional market rate multifamily units. We are very early days. So the final number of spaces, our intention is to meet zoning ordinance requirements for whatever unit mix and product type is built here. And then to respond to Carlos, the intention is to have the Food Star be part of this development, not to include a different grocer in the development.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I see Mr. Mark Donert. You have your hand raised, sir. The floor is yours.
Yes, I was just going to type in the chat. Even though I live near Seven Corners, one question that I always have about redevelopment that increases density in the Bailey's Crossroads skyline area is the impacts and the analysis of impacts on transportation on Seminary Road that goes through the city of Alexandria. You've got a big area where you don't have any southern moving direction. And I often wonder, having commuted in that area for a long time over the years, know that Seminary Road can become a choke point. And how does Fairfax County and Alexandria City and VDOT work together to ensure we don't create a terrible problem? Thank you.
Point noted. Very important point noted, Mr. Donert. Thank you for that. Okay. Any other questions? Again, if you think of something after the call, maybe something pops in your head, you can always reach out to staff. I think my email is somewhere in the chain, in the chat somewhere. I'll share it here one last time so I can put it on screen so folks can have it. Next steps for the process is the the Planning Commission workshop. I believe, again, that's towards the end of May. To stay involved, make sure that you are visiting the webpage. All of the future meetings as it relates to SSPA will be shared there. If, again, any of these nominations are to move forward, you would then expect to hear from county staff after a study is scoped and set up. And we would be reaching out to each of the communities individually to talk through the nominations and to talk through really all of the considerations that you all have raised in tonight's discussion. My email is on the screen. I don't have anything else. With that, you all are free. And I sincerely appreciate your patience and your time. Everyone have a wonderful evening.